everyone, Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today's play is all about using stencils and a gel plate. Now, this is part of my video series all about making your very first gel print. This is video 3 in the series, and if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, never fear, there'll be links down below for you. Now, with this, we are going to talk about when you add the paint, because the paint isn't always the first thing that you add when playing with stencils on a gel plate. The other thing that we're going to look at is how to take the print. There's more than one way to actually take the print. And of course, I have made a downloadable guide for you. That way you can print that out and have it right next to you as you're making your prints. You can use the link down below to have it emailed right to you. So the first thing we're going to do is add the paint directly to the gel press plate. And that paper that I'm going to use, by the way, you saw me make that in one of the earlier videos in this series. I'm going to put some white paint on here, and it's a heavy body white paint that I'm using, but this technique will work with any paint. If you're wondering why it's called a heavy paint, a heavy body, because it's thicker, and a fluid paint is more of a runnier paint. Well, now I'm going to place the stencil right on top there. Now when I take the print, notice that I'm not putting the entire paper down flat. I'm holding it up with my other hand, and I'm just going to rub it so that it's on just one corner of the print. So the pattern didn't go everywhere. I didn't take a complete pull with that. I did a partial. And whenever you're working with stencils or the gel plate in any time, you can take a partial print. Now you might have recognized that as one of the first pulls that were loaded with paint from an earlier video. I am going to use that to take the entire stencil image this time because I have the flexibility. I can do a partial print or I can take the entire thing. Now I've still got a lot of paint on there and I'm looking for a piece of paper to grab. And it would be great if I had a colorful piece right in arm's reach right now, but I didn't. So I grabbed just a plain old white one. Now I've got white paint on there and white paper, so I have a sneaky suspicion this isn't going to show up very well. Probably going to get a few flecks of paint from the dirty things left on the gel plate, but most likely this is going to be kind of an oops of a page. And yep, that's what it is. You can see the pattern just a little bit on there, but for the most part, yeah, not very impressive. So just know anytime that you're making a print, if you get one that you don't like, it's not the end of the world because what I'm going to do with this one is put it back on the stack of prints and just add more layers to it next time I'm playing with the gel plate. Well, this time what I'm going to do is put the stencil directly onto the naked gel press plate. And I'm just going to push it down to make sure that it's stuck or adhered because there's kind of a neat little suction that goes on with it. So you can see if I'm pulling on the stencil, it's completely stuck to that gel press plate. And this is what's going to make it possible for me to apply the paint after the stencil. The paint that I've grabbed here is called Blickrylic. It's a Dick Blick student grade paint. I happen to like it, but it's a very craft grade paint. I'm putting the paint directly onto the stencil, not in the open areas, but on the stencil part. And that's going to allow me to get more even coverage as I'm brayering it on. If I need more paint, I can always add that, of course. And I'm just going to use the brayer to brayer over the whole thing. I'm trying to get the paint into where the pattern is, and anywhere that it looks like there isn't any paint, there probably isn't any paint there. Then the next thing I'm going to do is peel the stencil off. When I do that, what you're going to see is the image left behind on the gel press plate. And then I'm immediately going to take my paper and put it right on the image. Now I had my paper ready to go there. That way there was as little chance as possible that the paint would dry out on me. If I went looking for my paper then, there's a chance it would have dried out and I wouldn't get nearly as interesting a pull with it. So as I lift this up, you'll see how the image has transferred with that wonderful gel printing kind of look to it. Now this Paris Opera House stencil that I designed is available over at StencilGirl Products. And that first pattern stencil that I used in the video, that's by Mary Beth Shaw called Chainmail. Well, now let's play around with some stencils with words. Usually when you're using a stencil, it doesn't matter which side you use, but it does with words if you want to be able to read them. So this is right side up to me, and this is backwards to me. Basically, it's not legible, the words are backwards. That's how you want to put it onto the gel press plate. Now you can put the paint on first or you can put the stencil on first. Here I'm choosing to put the stencil on first, and you can see that I've got good suction there, so I know that it's well attached and I can bring in some paint. I'm going to be using some heavy body paint, and just like I did with the Paris Opera House, I'm going to put the paint right on the stencil directly. I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on here, and I'm going to brayer it around and see if it's enough paint for me. If it's not enough paint, all I have to do is simply add some more. And I can tell you already that this is so not enough paint for me. I'm going to need to put some more on here. So I'm going to put a little bit over here. And then I'm just going to brayer it on like I did before. Anywhere that it looks like there isn't paint on the gel press plate, there probably isn't any paint there. So you can see areas where it's darker and then areas where the color is lighter. Where it's darker, there's more paint, and where it's lighter, there's less paint. And I like it when that happens because it'll give me a little more variation in my print, so everything won't be all perfect. I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper here and clean off that brayer, and now I'm ready to peel up the stencil. As soon as I've got the stencil off, I'm going to take that paper that I had over there, the print ready to go, and I'm going to put that right on top. Now, as I put it down, I am going to rub my hands all around it to make sure that I've got a good connection between the paper and the plate. And part of what I really enjoy about using a gel plate is that even if I do the exact same thing twice, I'm not going to get the exact same print each time. So I never know for sure everything that's going to come up. There might be small variations, there might be big variations in it. I just never know. Serendipity is a huge part of what the final prints look like. And so here's what it looks like. You can see how I had a little more paint in some places, why it's darker and lighter, and it creates an interesting print with a stencil. So now you know a couple of the ways that you can use a stencil with a gel plate. Now I said a couple of the ways because, well, there is an unlimited number of ways that you can use the gel plate and stencils. As a matter of fact, there's an unlimited number of ways that you can use a gel plate to make all sorts of prints and things. Now, if you'd like to know more about different ways to use a gel plate, you can head on over to my blog at acolorfuljourney.com. I've got all sorts of resources for you, as well as workshops that go into more depth and detail about different ways to make prints with a gel plate. Thanks so much for joining me for today's play and letting me be a part of your colorful journey.